is Andrew Cardozo. I'm speaking with Frank Baylis, who was the Member of Parliament for Pierrefonds-Dollard from 2015 till now. Frank, I want to take you back to when you first ran. What did you think? Well, what inspired you to run? What motivated you to run for public office?
Yeah, I think people that run for public office, it's a calling. It's like anything else in life. You have something inside of you that pulls you towards it, calls you, if you will. And I think the opportunity to serve and be a member of parliament is a wonderful opportunity. Truly a great honor, and I feel honored to have had that privilege to represent Pierrefonds-Dollard for the last 4 years.
What were you doing before that?
I'm a businessman,
Right.
so I had I still have it, I have a medical device company. We design and sell medical products specialized in cardiology and back pain.
So what made you give that up for politics?
Business has gone
at that time?
Yeah, business was going very well, and I was lucky to be successful in the business, and I have a partner. And I had turned 50, and I always had in the back of my mind that I would like to run. So it was kind of now was the right time to do it. As well, the past member of parliament had lost the election for the Liberals in the previous election. He was not going to run again. So there was an
Right.
open seat,
Yeah.
and all the pieces came together. As well, my children had moved out of the house to go to school, and that, so it was like the time. If I was going to do it,
Right.
that was the right time to do it.
So 4 years later, you decided not to run. Share with me some of your reflections about your time in office.
So I really enjoyed the part of meeting people. And that's really one of the best parts of this job is you meet so many people, both in your riding and across the country. And you meet great people from all parts of Canada. And I don't just mean Liberals, I mean Conservatives and NDP. There's wonderful people in Parliament. And I thought that was one of the best parts of the job. And I quite enjoyed my work in the constituent, helping local people with their dealings with the federal government, you know.
Yeah. Did you find it easy to have friends across the aisle?
I did. I don't bother at all with the partisan stuff. I really find that very distasteful. And that's one of the reasons I chose not to run again. I did not like the way things were run in Ottawa, fundamentally.
What could you say more about that, or like
Sure.
is there an example around
Yeah,
issues?
absolutely.
Or
So I would say to your listeners and to most people is that 85% of the members of parliament, irregardless of what party they represent, are very good people. And I think they come to Ottawa wanting to do good for our country and that. I found that 15-20% were over the top partisan to the point of being ridiculous. And unfortunately, they were driving things a bit too much. I did not like that. And I thought it was to the detriment of having good discussions and getting good policy done. I really felt so. So the yelling and screaming during question period, the carrying on, I just couldn't take it. And again, on that side, there's enough blame to go around. It's not one party or another party. The system needed to be fixed. So what I did is I tried, first of all, talking to people, just trying to cajole them, that, and then I learned after
well, just
4 years.
tell me a little bit more about that. What like were you going to some of the more partisan people and saying, cool
Yeah,
it?
so
Or
if someone answered a question properly in the House of Commons and just answered it without getting a barb in or a cheap shot, I would say to them, I really appreciated that, someone on our side. Or if I found someone was a little too partisan and carrying on, I would try and talk to them and say, look, I don't appreciate that. And those were mostly people on my side, but even a few times on someone on the other side, I would make the same point to them.
how does that go down when you tell somebody?
Well,
that
what
you didn't like?
happens, I was trying to encourage good behavior and discourage bad behavior. But then I realized that the way the system has been contorted over the years, it didn't pay. It was actually better for people to be over the top partisan, quite frankly, stupid, close-minded. And so I realized then that the system itself had to change. And
Right.
then I set off on a project to change the system.
Yeah. And just before I get to that, how did it go with the other side when you were talking to people from other parties?
It depends. You know, it's the way you bring it up and that. But I had very good relationships with people on all sides of the aisle. So I never was someone to go and stick a barb or anything. I don't think anyone can say that during my 4 years there that I was rude to the other side or anybody. That's just not my style. I wouldn't put up with that.
Okay. What are some of the highlights in terms of the policy issues that you dealt with?
Well, what I really took on, which I quite enjoyed, was when I realized that the system itself had to be changed. I first read all the suggestions that people had made over the last 10, 15 years, and there's a bunch of excellent suggestions to change the system.
Suggestions about improving
How we could do things better, absolutely.
Did that deal with decorum as well as policy development
Yes,
stuff?
both. Decorum and productivity.
Okay.
Both need to be fixed. Both need to be fixed.
And what did you find?
So what I did is I found all these wonderful ideas. I then distilled them into what I thought was a package that was doable, the art of the possible. I then reached out to 2 members of the Conservative Party to work with me, 2 members of the NDP Party, 2 members of the Liberal Party, and Miss May of the Green Party. And we started working on this package. Each person worked on different sections. I kind of oversaw that and then brought it together in one package to present to the House of Commons ways that we could be much better at having better debates, greatly improving decorum, and at the same time improving productivity.
Okay. How did that? So where does that stand?
So what happened is I was bringing this forward. I had to wait my turn. One of the issues with being a member of Parliament is you only get a certain time to bring up your ideas or your motion or your bill. And it's the luck of the draw. And as it happened, I was actually lucky enough to get something coming up in the 4 years, because not every member of Parliament gets to come up. I was coming up, but unfortunately at the very end of Parliament. So I was in a bit of a race to have my bill, my motion, not a bill, but my motion heard. And it has to be heard for 1 hour, then a second hour. And unfortunately, I only got the first hour up. I never got the second hour, and then I never got it to debate. We ran out of time.
So what can happen with it from here?
It's dead. It's dead. And what's really interesting about when I did get my first hour up is that the opposition, and I don't want to attack anybody, I just want people to understand that the opposition did a maneuver where it wasn't even debated. That's very interesting. Normally when you put any motion or bill forward, the opposition or whoever it is feels it's their position to debate it, to point out its flaws and this and that. In this instance, they didn't want to debate, let alone a vote. And I'll tell you why. I had spoke to a number of members of Parliament from all sides, and I had great support. And I believe that they weren't even sure if their own people were going to support them in attacking my motion or actually supporting me. So they didn't want to even have it debated. That tells you something. And what I had found was that virtually everybody that I spoke to that was leaving Parliament was 110% for the motion to make things better. And a lot of the people that were staying also want to improve, greatly improve. So the great will is there to make it better.
Okay.